Nashville Public Radio serves Middle Tennessee in many ways, every day, including through this podcast. You can support it by leaving a review or rating, by telling a friend about it, or by contributing at WPLN.org/give.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's November 20th, 2025. On this day in 1980, a Texaco crew on a Louisiana drilling rig woke to realize their structure was kind of tilting. These things happen, especially in locations like theirs, which was a shallow coastal lake with a soft, muddy bottom called Lake Penure. Now, a drill stem had seized up, exerting pressure on the rig that it was attached to, so they got to work on trying to unstick it. But the more they tried, the more the rig tilted. And after a little while, the crew decided that whatever was wrong was beyond their ability to fix. They made the decision to bail. That meant releasing the barges that were attached to the rig and getting all personnel off the structure. Thank goodness they did. Because what they didn't realize was that their drill had actually pierced the roof of an underground salt mine. It opened up a sinkhole. And shortly after all the people got away from the rig, that hole grew big enough that the entire rig collapsed into the lake. Then a whirlpool formed, a violent one that was a full quarter-mile in diameter. Over the next 3 hours, the entire lake disappeared underground as that water rushed into the mine. Thankfully, the 50 miners working that day were able to evacuate. The lake was connected to the Gulf of Mexico via a canal, and the downward motion of all that lake water evacuating into the crater that had opened up made the canal reverse flow. A huge waterfall formed, made of Gulf water rushing towards the mine. Along the way, a second drilling rig was lost, and boats were sucked in through the whirlpool. 11 barges, a tug from the canal, even several buildings, and 40 acres of land from a lakeshore town just disappeared. Others, like small fishing vessels, got stuck in the mud as the water bottomed out. 2 days later, the now larger lake finally filled back up. Some, not all, of the boats reappeared on the water's surface. Somehow no people had been hurt. 3 dogs died, but they were the only casualties. Before the accident, Lake Penure was a freshwater lake, only about 10 feet deep. Since then, it's been a brackish one and the deepest in the state of Louisiana at 200 feet. Its ecosystem changed entirely and permanently. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. Sometimes when we share reporting here about the clash between business and the environment, I can imagine the reaction that some people will have. This business is going to hire people. It's providing a service everyone uses. Is the fear of something going wrong really that important? Aren't these warnings overblown? It's in the business's best interest to get things right, so maybe we should just trust them. And then I'm reminded of events like the draining of Lake Penure. In that case, Texaco had been in contact with the Diamond Salt Company about the location and particulars of its mine. They knew it was there. They thought they were avoiding it. But the calculations were off. The drill was placed someplace that wasn't as stable as they thought it would be. And next thing you know, the lake's disappearing underground and then replaced by a very different one. I can think of examples from Tennessee, too. The massive coal ash spill out in Kingston, for one. That's the incident from 2008 at a TVA power plant. The retention ponds that were supposed to be a safe way of storing the waste sludge suddenly couldn't hold that amount of slurry anymore. Everyone had trusted that the utility surely had kept a watchful eye on the state of the earthen dam holding the slurry in place. But whatever they did do, it clearly wasn't enough. That mess ended up covering 300 acres. It destroyed homes, and the cleanup destroyed the health of some of the people who did that work. Or in 2022, that time when a worker mowing the grass in the right-of-way around a crude oil pipeline somehow managed to rupture the pipe. 200,000 gallons of crude oil leaked into the West Tennessee rural landscape near Henderson. The spill's spread thankfully stopped just shy of the Memphis sand aquifer. A little bit further, and it would have contaminated the drinking supply for Tennessee's second largest city and many of its surrounding communities. These things don't happen often, but they do happen. And so when WPLN's environmental reporter Caroline Eggers tells us about the risks of a new pipeline or two being built to supply new gas-powered electric plants, or the dangers of the smoke those power plants will belch into the air, she's not being antagonistic against the TVA just for the sake of it. She's raising the alarm based on the actual risks involved. Same goes for everyone, including Caroline, voicing concerns about the Boring Company's tunnel under Murfreesboro Pike. It could be easy to write folks off as simply being Elon Musk haters, but look at how many sinkholes have opened up in this region through the years, even when nobody was doing anything to mess with the bedrock. I mean, just go over the Kentucky state line and visit the Corvette Museum. One day in 2014, a 40-foot wide hole suddenly opened up under the structure, taking out the floor of a display area. 8 cars fell into the hole. Some of them are back on display in their damaged state, a testament to that bizarre and unforeseen disaster. So is it any wonder that people who are aware of those kinds of incidents have a wary or even shocked response to the idea of purposely boring a tunnel through our Swiss cheese limestone? Well, so far we have not heard anything from the Boring Company about initial findings from the environmental review that is supposed to be underway. But they are clearly preparing to level up their operations. The first segment of their massive boring machine has reportedly been delivered to the primary access point just a few blocks away from the state capitol building. And they've installed a high-speed conveyor machine to clear out rock that's excavated from the tunnel. In just a few minutes, another story of business and nature, but a more beautiful one. That's coming up after the newscast.
At WPLN, we tell stories about honoring our families.
If he become a monk, that means that mom and dad will go to heaven when they pass away.
And preserving memories.
I never heard of a Rosenwald school. Nobody never told me that's where I went.
I'm Char Daston, and my reporting connects you with your neighbors and the important moments in their lives.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. The Tennessee Department of Correction is already facing several legal challenges because of secrecy around how it administers lethal injections. Now another court is ordering the agency to turn over records. That's because of a lawsuit from the next man to undergo lethal injection. Harold Wayne Nichols' execution is scheduled for December 11th. His attorneys have been asking for public records regarding lethal injection methods. That includes documents pertaining to recent executions, including that of Byron Black, who groaned and said he was in pain as he died. As it has in other ongoing lawsuits, TDOC refused to turn over the documents, citing secrecy laws. Now, a Knox County judge says the agency has until December 3rd to hand them over so he can review them and assess whether TDOC was right to keep them under wraps. TDOC is embroiled in a similar fight in Davidson County Court. That challenge is on behalf of several death row inmates and has been underway since March. The agency has refused to sign over records and is fighting back on requests to interview staff. One of the most recent documents to be turned over, months after attorneys began requesting it, was the readout of Byron Black's electrocardiogram. It showed he had ongoing cardiac activity for minutes after his declared time of death, and that the activity continued when the machine was turned off. A long-anticipated deal has been reached to build a new home for the Tennessee Performing Arts Center. Metro and TPAC have agreed to a location on the East Bank, across the river from downtown, and next to the John Sigenthaler pedestrian bridge. The agreement comes a year and a half into negotiations that had raised the possibility of TPAC ending up somewhere other than the East Bank. It will go through votes at the Metro Council. Metro did not immediately share full details about costs, but the plan calls for both Metro and TPAC to improve infrastructure. The Performing Arts Center can also tap into $500 million from the state, contingent on raising matching funds. TPAC has been seeking a new home since 2022, when state officials began moving tenants out of the downtown James K. Polk office building, where it is currently located. President Trump sparked uproar last week when he proposed a 50-year mortgage. Many people, including Trump's own supporters, criticized the idea. Now WPLN's Cynthia Abrams reports that Middle Tennessee State University has joined the opposition, citing a report from the school's College of Business.
For close to a century, the average length of a mortgage in the U.S. has been 30 years. So When President Trump posted to Truth Social an image of him proposing a 50-year option, it was an attempt at addressing the housing affordability crisis. But many people immediately responded that a 50-year mortgage is not actually a cheaper option. And that's what MTSU is saying. Their report shows that for a $400,000 home, which is roughly the median price of a home in Tennessee, a 50-year mortgage would end up costing a buyer an additional $537,000 in interest. Cynthia Abrams, WPLN News.
The nation's largest landlord has just reached a $7 million settlement with Tennessee and 8 other states over a rental price-fixing scheme. Greystar manages nearly 950,000 rental units across the country and 6,000 here in Tennessee. Greystar was accused of using algorithms to jack up rent prices so that renters could not shop around for lower-priced leases. This is the latest lawsuit addressing making rents higher than they would have been. Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti announced the settlement. In a media release, he says the scheme to artificially inflate prices, quote, is not fair, is not right, and we're putting a stop to it by holding these companies accountable. The settlement still needs to be approved by a judge. If it is, Greystar would cooperate in another lawsuit against RealPage, a real estate software company that shared the pricing data. There's yet another announcement of temporary layoffs at one of Middle Tennessee's automotive factories. ABC Technologies makes auto parts at its plant in Gallatin. A notice filed with the state says 85 non-union workers will be furloughed by the end of the week. Similar layoffs have been announced for GM's auto battery facility in Spring Hill, GM supplier Tenneco in Spring Hill and Smithville, and a Bridgestone tire plant in Laverne. The Trump administration is pulling back on some tariffs, but in some cases the damage is already done. Nashville importers and artisans described their difficulties on our midday show, This is Nashville. Luthier Manuel Delgado of Delgado Guitars says he abandoned a shipment from China and lost $8,000 because the tariffs far exceeded his potential profit.
We're going to lose a whole quarter of revenue this year because we're behind on our order. So everything trickles down. I'm all about wanting to have everything made here in the United States if it was possible, but it's just not possible. The systems have been set up to where it's just not possible.
Delgado makes his high-end instruments at his Nashville workshop, but he says his line of guitars for beginners would cost at least 6 times as much if they were made in the U.S. Local importers of coffee and tea say they're still dealing with supply chain challenges even after some of the food tariffs were rolled back this week. The ongoing conflict over property assessments in Rutherford County is getting even messier. For the last year or so, various boards and agencies have looked into claims that assessor Rob Mitchell and his office illegally avoided updating their valuations of some properties. That impacts how much the property is taxed. The investigations all started with an ethics complaint, and Mitchell has long said that complaint was filed as a political attack. Well, now a separate ethics complaint from a Murfreesboro resident says County Mayor Joe Carr orchestrated the initial filing against Mitchell. The Daily News Journal reports the new complaint also suggests Carr attempted to influence a member of the local ethics commission that ruled against Mitchell. That said, a state audit did find significant problems with the property assessments currently on file. News Channel 5 reports the Tennessee Comptroller's Office is threatening legal action if Mitchell doesn't correct all of those errors by Tuesday. This warning comes a week after the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation confirmed it is also looking into what's going on in the property assessor's office.
You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org.
Pearls are a prized gemstone that can be found in the wild, but that are also cultivated on farms. In North America, there is one lone freshwater pearl farm, and for the Appalachian Mid-South newsroom, Will Darnell visited it along Kentucky Lake in Tennessee.
Them rocks will go right out from under you. You see this angle?
On a short walk down slippery rocks along a creek in Camden, Tennessee, a small flatbed boat sits anchored in the shallow water. It's used to harvest beautiful pearls from Tennessee river mussels at Birdsong Creek Resort and Marina. The man operating the boat is John Nearin, but everyone calls him Diver John. He's been working at the Tennessee River Freshwater Pearl Farm since it began production in the early 1980s. Despite pearls having a rich history dating back thousands of years, the farm is the only one in North America that cultivates them.
When I first started, I was 14. Yeah, an old army sergeant, he gathered up a bunch of us and said, "Come on, boys, make a living digging clams."
In those days, the farm focused on producing pearls for export. Owner Bob Keast says his family has operated the resort since the 1960s, and they had no idea the potential their bay held until a local man with a unique aspiration approached them.
The pearl farm was brought to our attention back in the late 70s by a man by the name of John LaTonya. And John had married a Japanese woman right after World War II and brought her to Camden, Tennessee.
LaTonya's wife, Chessie, came from a family that had deep connections with the pearl industry in Japan, which allowed her to learn the best methods of cultivating them from the native mussels. Keast says those same techniques are still used today, and they closely resemble common methods still practiced in Japan. The process entails collecting mussels from the main water channel and implanting them with a piece of artificial material to ensure the creation of a shiny pearl.
Then we put it in a net, and we hang the net off our PVC water pipe here at Birdsong, and we wait 6 or 8 years, and we grows a pearl.
Miriam says the low visibility of the water adds an additional layer of difficulty to the collection process, making him have to rely only on his sense of touch.
You blend in with the rocks, and so if the water starts getting a little dark, you just use the very tip end of your fingers and you rub it back and forth real gently, and you got to discern out whether you're hitting a rock or a clam shell.
He says it feels like second nature to him after so many years.
It's kind of like playing a piano, you see. After a while, you know what key to hit.
Today, the farm has transitioned into an educational museum and a store that uses pearls from the farm and imported gems to craft beautiful jewelry. Susan Lewis oversees the museum and store. She says giving tours to curious travelers has shown her that people are truly fascinated about the history of this unique operation.
They're in here shopping and trying to learn about the freshwater mussel and the pearl farm, and it's a lot of information, but I think they're hungry for that.
The part of the tour that visitors are often most eager for is the moment when Miriam opens the mussels that he has freshly pulled from the water. With precision, he pries open the mollusk with a knife, being careful not to damage the pearls that lie inside, until it finally pops open and he turns with a satisfied smile. For the Appalachia Mid-South Newsroom, I'm Will Darnell.
Thanks for listening to the Nashvillager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.